and welcome. It's a beautiful morning here in Gurgaon. We have had rains for the last 4 days, and now the chill has set in, and Delhi winter is going to be welcoming people who are visiting this place. And from Mumbai, we have Shailesh joining us, Shailesh Kapoor, who is, when I was reading about him, he says he's a lifelong student and a bit of a teacher too. And by the way, he's the founder and CEO of Ormax Media. He'll talk more about the company, but we know that SecondAct podcast is more about the people who join in. And so I leave the business introduction to Shailesh himself. So welcome, and how's it going with you?
Thank you, Archana. No, it's going well. It's nice to connect on this. I've heard a couple of podcasts recently, and I think that it's a very interesting area to explore compared to the usual business chats that one keeps having. So we're actually looking forward to this quite a lot.
Actually, yeah, when I was in my corporate world and I came on the other side of entrepreneurship, what also attracts me very much is to actually get people who have spent a major amount of life in the corporate and then switched over to being an entrepreneur. So with your background to your IITs and IIMs and also working with the top companies like Z, Times, now you are, literally on the other side of the spectrum, and that too leading like an entertainment industry. So maybe you can tell us a little bit in short about it, because we will like to know more about you in this podcast.
Yeah, so I'm from Delhi originally. So I did my schooling from there, and then I got into IIT Delhi where I did my engineering, during which I realized that it was just one of those things that you get into without knowing whether you really want to do it. So, uh, and like many people do, move to IIM Calcutta after IIT, which was actually a lot more fun because it was closer to what I enjoyed, and I mean the business side of it, and softer as well as the more uh, hard business understanding. But somewhere during those 6 years of staying in hostel, first in IIT Delhi, then in IIM Calcutta, I think there was a deep interest for the media and entertainment industry. That time it was more films, to be honest, because TV was still coming up and we didn't have digital, of course. So this is back in 93 to 99 is the period I'm talking of. So that interest started developing, and it was more like, initially it was more about watching films, talking about them, a little bit writing about them. But slowly, as I was graduating from IIM Calcutta, I started to think that this is what I want to make as a career as well. This is because this is work that this is what I want to work on, not just see it as an interest or a hobby. It was highly unconventional that time because hardly any media
Yeah.
companies would be coming to the campus. So thankfully, Sony came, and I was in at the time of placement. I was second or the third rank holder in my batch, and people were like, "Are you crazy? You are going to apply to all the McKinseys and BCG. You are just talking this right now, but eventually, the salaries are not even comparable. It's like 10x. It was not even like 2x or something." So, but I just went into my shell, and I'm only applying to this one or two companies from media which are coming. I got through Sony Entertainment Television back then. So it's actually been, it was not even well thought through. It was more an instinct that you want, you look at an industry as something that you want to work in and just go for it. I think over the years you see so many people like classmates, from IIT, from IIM, who are working generally in general sense. If you see, job satisfaction is not very widely prevalent. I mean, you would say only 30-40% people, maybe even lesser. When you talk to them, you feel that they're actually enjoying the work that they're doing. So I feel in a way, what I did on instinct is what one of my biggest validations has been, that if you work in something that on an area that you're passionate about, you would everything else does fall in place eventually, in terms of whether it is growth, whether it is income, whether it is, of course, the happiness of it. So there's never been a regret moment in that sense, whether it is in the 9 years of corporate, as a professional, as an employee, or the now 14 and a half years almost of entrepreneurship. So I think the common thread has been that it's the same industry. Of course, entrepreneurship is different, and as much as when you're working in a corporate, you feel that you are giving it your all. And I
No.
was very proud that I always saw all the brands I was working on as my brands, and I never said, "Oh, this is some I'm working for someone else." But then when you work for yourself, it is a different thing. Where you do, like, for the first 3 4 years of this company, every Saturday Sunday I've been working. I mean, like, you cannot say that somebody else will have to do it for you. And there's a very different high. And when I see a lot of young people today wanting to be entrepreneurs, I always question them, that do you know what it takes? Because it does take a toll. It's not on a platter. So it's easy to have an aspiration, but there always one needs to know what comes with it as well. But yeah, I mean, touch wood, all has been good by and large. So yeah, no complaint.
So I resonate with it so totally, though I've like literally my career in entrepreneurship started very, very recently. But I was also leading well-being for the last organization I was working on, or working with. So when I was leading well-being for them, it was all about, looking after yourself in a way that you did some, literally like time off, switch off your gadgets, get out of the place, just really come back, rejuvenate. The company would spend money on you, saying, hey, go for a paid holiday. And that was well-being for me, literally. And when I came on this side, I'm still promoting well-being. And this time I'm literally promoting well-being in the marginalized communities. And the total, what should I say, the trajectory of well-being has changed. And like you mentioned, that when you're working for somebody or with somebody, we think we are giving it all, but the learnings come literally when you come on the other side. And I think I'm opening my eyes, ears, mouth, everything open, in the last literally 2 years of my life. And learning has just started, I feel.
Yeah, because I think in entrepreneurship, there's no hiding place at all. I mean, you cannot hide behind anyone at any point of time. There is no boss. There is no structure in which you are a part and there's somebody above and somebody above. It's just a fundamental shift that you have to be fully responsible for every decision you take of any kind, smallest to biggest.
Absolutely.
And it is empowering also, it is satisfying also. And I think it's just that I feel like the way this word entrepreneurship has been used in the last 10 15 years, it's become kind of a buzzword, and it seems like a cool thing to do. And I see a lot of people also look down upon the idea of taking up a job compared to being an entrepreneur. I find that obviously highly oversimplistic in the idea of that evaluation in their heads, because you know it
So
it
true.
comes with its own responsibilities. It's not necessarily the easier of the two things to do. I mean, any day taking up a job is the easier option, and therefore one is getting into this. One has to know what it comes with, and I think I also advocate working for at least a few years before one takes it up, because you have to be on both sides to experience and understand the difference. It
Yeah.
does help.
So, what did you have to really unlearn when you came on this side? Were the things that you unlearned, and now you feel that there are a few things that you would like the entrepreneurs of today to know from your learnings?
Yeah, so I think there are many things related to essentially, if I would put broadly in the space of HR culture, building teams, and all that. When you are in big organizations, most of my 9 years were in big organizations, as Z or Times of India, where I was part of the television business, or before that in Sony. Um, Somewhere in big organizations where you are part of one of the businesses and not the only business, you are part of a larger structure and there are hundreds of thousands of people, multiple offices. There is a certain way companies operate, but when you set up company like ours, which is, even now we are only 30 people, uh, uh, the whole grain of the company cannot be on that idea of a thousand people company. One of the things which I realized, I think I was probably realizing it even when I was on the other side, but it became a very conscious reality that there's a widespread corporate cynicism in the world, right? That most people think that companies will be unfair to them. They will suck out the last hour from them and not pay them fairly. And most companies think employees are not going to be loyal, employees are not going to be, I mean, they're going to wing it through as far as possible. And, so there's a general this relationship of mistrust between companies and employees, and it is widely prevalent. I mean, that's why People often quit. They would probably think that they're getting the growth that they deserve. Companies may not feel that people are giving it their best. And in general, the whole thing, when you even sit with friends over a drink and talk about how their company is treating them, most people do not think their companies are treating them well. And most companies also do not necessarily
Yeah,
think
vice versa.
that that the employees will be honest and will be
Mm.
necessarily ethical if they were left on their own.
So
And
true.
that is something I think has bothered me. I don't know. It's a human thing. It's just the way I see things. And I've been like, but why? Why can't you set up something where people can just trust you and you can trust them? So, and we have been, when it started, of course, first few years, you're just setting up, and I was still trying to, in a way, adapt or adopt some of the corporate ways of working in this company for the first 5, 6, 7 years. But last 4, 5 years, I've been very conscious, and now off late we have just let go of every single thing that can cue in corporate
Oh,
cynicism as an idea. So we do not have a leave policy, for example. We do not have any policy on whether you have to work from home or work from office, or uh, like I'm in office right now, around 60% people are there remaining up somewhere. You could actually disappear on for a week and nobody will tell you why you've disappeared. So
wow.
we have taken the idea of yeah, so there is actually nothing. It's not even like you have to inform if you're working from home or you have to inform if you're going on a leave. People can spend money on something related to work and get it reimbursed without any approval on anything. So I could technically today buy a laptop saying I need a new laptop and I will just get reimbursed for it.
Can I
It's not like somebody has to approve
do you have a mini
it.
semi-entrepreneurship model where one can work for your company and also be an entrepreneur? I would love
Yeah, but and the whole philosophy here has been, especially the last 1 or 2 years, and I think a lot of this is pandemic-led thinking, where you realize that we are so caught up in being self-aware and self-important that we, like so much focus on targets, sales, and profits. And then when those 2 years happened, 2020 and 21, and you realize that eventually the most important thing is, are you safe? Is your family safe? Are your team members fine? Are their families fine? And for a couple of years, we were obviously the work was severely affected. A lot of our work involves going to consumers on ground and testing content with them by showing them movies, showing them TV shows, and because we were physically in lockdown state, our testing had halted because you
Mm.
can't get people in a room to show them a movie. So we obviously had a loss-making year in 2020-21, but none of the attention was on that. All the attention was on health. So then you realize that that is really what well-being, whether it's mental, physical, and the emotional connect that you have built with people over time, because many people in this company have been here for now 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, and the core team here has been pretty much there from the early years of the company. That the connect that you're building is really far more important than all these things that on a day-to-day basis we seem to keep ourselves preoccupied with for some reason. I have, in the last 1 year, stopped looking at the sales numbers more than once in a month. Earlier, I used to look at them probably every alternate day. And it's not like I've done this consciously. It just doesn't interest me. And ironically, sales are better than they were ever. So it's not like by looking at them, I was managing to increase them. So I think just and through that period, these ideas have come that and make people feel that they're a part of it by just trusting them implicitly. And if you trust them implicitly, you will get it back because human nature trusts back. And I think the general idea that the world is full of good people, and if you spread goodness, you will get goodness back. I think that's something that we kind of that's very different here, and it's very difficult to explain in words because it's an experience that and somebody joins or somebody is working here, the kind of like a lot of people have tell me that if I were to ever feel like I don't want to do this anymore, I will have to do something else in life because I cannot work for another company after this because I will not get this thing anywhere else.
Mm.
So, which is like a huge compliment, and like I get all emotional listening to that kind of stuff. So, I think yeah, the idea is to not make it like a company employee relationship driven by policies and rules and Yet we are very process oriented as far as work is concerned, because eventually we are working with clients. We are a B2B company. So you cannot let the quality of work suffer.
Yes.
But being process oriented is not the antithesis of being people oriented. So I think that sometimes in some of the literature, these kind of words are used as false binaries, that, oh, if you're process oriented, you're not people oriented. I think we can be both if you're clear about when you need processes and when you don't. So yeah, so I think a lot of last 3 years and yeah, with all um, uh, in a way blessing in disguise coming from the pandemic, that it has shaped up a lot of my thinking for sure, and I'm sure it's done it for a lot of people who began to look at their life very differently in the last 2 years.
So thanks for that, because while I agree with you on building trust and getting it back as well, but because I'll work with a lot of corporates and do workshops around self-awareness and literally well-being and mindfulness, a lot comes back saying that there is still an element of when things were opening up, supposing, and people wanted them to come back to office, the colleagues had fallen into that trap of like literally finding space at home. It took a while to start working from home. There were so many challenges in the beginning, and when people settled in, literally company was struggling to get them back. And even today, like you said, your company doesn't need even a policy to advise somebody if they're late or they're not coming, but it doesn't work in most of the industries, I would say. But this was a norm, like people were not informing enough or not telling enough, and then there was a lot of unrest between the corporates and the employees. So it's a pleasant hearing. It's a pleasant feeling of like saying that there are companies who are feeling that there is definitely a change, and when you build trust on the other side, it does come back. But in case there is a fallback.
But I have to say that it's what you just mentioned. We are still facing it. So, for example, there are certain types of meetings. Say it's a brainstorming meeting. Now, in a brainstorming meeting, if you are like sitting for 1.5 hours in a room, 6 people, the energy is very different vis-a-vis 3 people on Zoom and 3 people in a room. It's because you're ideating, right? So it's easier to ideate when you have a whiteboard and you don't have to worry about is the whiteboard visible on Zoom or not, and those kind of strange things that suddenly have come into life. Now, so still that issue is there, but the solution to that is not to force people to come to office for that meeting. The solution is to give feedback, saying it would have been nice if we would have done this meeting in person. So in future, if you have such meetings, try and see if you can come. And I think again, if there is trust, this kind of feedback would not be seen as a diktat, but more like a feedback. Feedbacks. I think, and so we speak about these things. Like so because because it's a small company, there is a cultural element of being like a family and stuff like that. So when instead of 30 people in office, we have only 10 people on certain days, you feel like it looks empty, and you don't get that vibe of wholesomeness from it. So, and we miss it. I mean, all people who come, like people like me who come to office every day, so we sometimes feel like it's just not looking full enough. But you have to respect that people have to find their own calling also in this, because if you impose it, you're actually not making them co-opt your ideas. So I think that the balance is there, that we have to, and so I'm very vocal about what I think. And so in my team meetings, I say why I think working from office is a good idea. So it's not like I'm shying away from that because it has to be free thinking and we should not influence anybody's thought. But at the same time, it should not be imposed, is where the balance is. And I think, yeah, but it's not like we are not facing it. There is a lot of too many Zoom meetings for my comfort. I'm still a little old school like that. I like to have people in a room and chat. But what I really like is that the client meeting side has got sorted. Because earlier you would have a meeting in Lower Parel. I mean, Lower Parel, Andheri to Lower Parel in Mumbai is 1.5 hours on a good traffic day times. So now for a half an hour meeting or a 45 meeting, you have to travel 1.5 hours, then do the meeting, then travel 1.5 hours back to home, which is also around office. So that's 3 hours of actual time in a car,
I'm gone.
which is which is just got saved. So I think that's a huge for somebody in the B2B business where client meetings are pretty much a day-to-day affair. It's a huge saving of, and I think now clients are also got comfortable. So even with new clients, first time you would probably meet in person. After that, I think everybody's comfortable saying
Yeah.
shorter meetings can be had over a video call. So I think
Yeah.
the good things have come out of this thing as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just going to
but
say
then
that it wasn't only about attendance or people coming to office. There's so many changes that have also happened, which have taught us another way of living. And I think the more that we are in tune with this, I think life will be better in any way. And then we are also having some time for ourselves. And that's the biggest lesson that I think which came out of like these 2, 3 years, that invest in yourself, and that's the best thing you can do. So I think a lot of people who were not focusing on their own mental space, physical space, psychological space are able to now relate to it and spend some time with themselves, which is a great idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing in connection to that, which I've become more aware of in the last couple of years, is that there are generational differences you have to account for. So I'm now 47. The median age of my company is 32, 33. A lot of people in this company are in their mid 20s, late 20s,
Yeah,
some even in their early 20s.
sure.
Now you cannot apply your idea of life to somebody who's 25 years or 27 years old. It will just not work because you have not been brought up like them and so on. So somewhere, because some of them have parents who are my age. So, so you can't
Of
be
course. Yeah.
foolhardy to think that, oh, everybody's like, yeah, like the same. So I think I've become more and more conscious of the fact that you are dealing with a couple of generations below you. And you have to be aware of it. You can't just ignore the idea that people over the last 20 years in the generation of internet would have been brought up differently vis-a-vis how you were brought up. So their values may be still not very different, but the manifestation of their values and their behavior will be very different. And it is, one can, I think, as an entrepreneur, one can try and sometimes impose their values and their ideas on people, which probably for the first 5, 6 years of this company I was trying to do. I was also in my 30s and not my 40s. So maybe, I was not that much over the hill to, to think about it like that. But today, I think, I don't think I want to apply a 47-year-old thinking to a 25-year-old's mind and expect that they will flourish at work. So and this is again something that I think the way younger people respond to the pandemic versus the older lot has responded, there are subtle differences. Younger people have been more confused. Older people probably have seen some of the other kind of crisis, tragedy in their lives earlier, maybe in families, and also they've been more mature in their responses, maybe a little more taking it in stride. So you realize that you have to account for. So when we a few months ago we got last year, sometime early this year, we got a mental health expert on board, so people can contact her and have anonymous sessions. And people have been using it because when we get the invoice, we know how many sessions happened. We know who obviously used it. But in general, it seems that it is a very, very acceptable thing for some of the younger people in their 20s and early 30s to go through. Like when I was that age, I was not even aware of it.
Yes.
Forget having the option of it. Yeah. So it's fascinating that you actually think that people are using it because they feel the need. And in this year, which is not even strictly speaking a pandemic year. So I mean, and I find these fascinating as ideas that you as you grow older, you have to begin to appreciate people much younger than you and see things from their point of view.
Yeah, so true. I think a lot can be learned from this generation, and I think mental health, especially as a topic of looking after, that they have a voice, they feel that they need it, and if you have a platform like that available, I'm glad that they're using it. Like you said, that we were not even aware, right? I mean, in our generation, this whole concept of that you're not feeling mentally did not even exist. We just had to do what we had to do. We were given a task and do it, and that's life. And we all fell into the pattern of life. They are experimenting. This generation is taking chances because there is also somebody at the back holding them. I think we didn't have that either. Nobody was holding us
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
back. We were just thrown into it and said, now lead your life. they have a backing, they have a support system, they also have a lot of awareness around. So I think they're very, very lucky and they are making use of it. So that's great. And I think organizations who have younger people also are growing, I think, more holistically because of also expanding their own width, of acceptance to a lot of things which were not before. So I'm glad that you have a whole lot there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've also seen, though, it comes with its own share of new kind of challenges. So, for like, when I was working in my early years, the general thinking was that first few years you have to just learn and
Yeah.
get better at what you do, because it would take whatever 10,000 hours to master something and those kind of ideas. Here, I think within 6 months
They
in
get
feedback
bored.
meetings, when people start no, or they start saying, I don't feel I'm making an impact. Now,
That would-
the thing is that, yeah, in 3-4 months, if you're expecting that you'll make a real impact, it's just, I mean, the idea of
yeah.
how things function is a little almost too idealistic. So I think there is a certain sense of restlessness and lack of patience
Yeah.
in seeing things build up in a certain way. Again, it is generational to some extent. Some people within that generation, not everybody has it at the same level, but with some people, you could sense that they're actually very good, and you wish that if they could be little less restless, they will actually do much better at work, because they will give themselves more time, they will give themselves more space to learn and grow, rather than on a daily level evaluating themselves, questioning themselves, getting influenced by probably the social chatter or how their friends are doing in life and all that. So I think there's a little bit of this excessive media exposure tends to sometimes complicate the narratives in the head as well.
So if you had to say something to the younger generation of today, what is that one thing that you want to tell them?
Yeah, I would say that there are two things. One is that whatever you're doing or whatever you want to do, uh, give it a couple of years, because nothing really. mm, You never really know whether you like something or whether there's something meant for you in 2-3 months, 6 months. You should give yourself some time, because eventually the first 5 years of working are essentially years of learning. And I don't think this is an idea that should has changed over years. If you're willing to put in the hard work to learn in the first 4-5 years of your working life, the rest of your career will benefit from it. Rather than feeling that, oh, I've already spent 3 months or 6 months in this company, what next for me? Or what is the next role? Oh, I've understood this work. Can I move to another department and learn something else? Because sometimes you need to master something by spending a little more time than a few months on it. I think there's definitely, I would suggest that if you channelize they have good energy, a lot of good awareness, as you said. It will be good if they channelize it correctly and not defocus it and move in multiple directions at the same time. At the same time, like this whole entrepreneurship, a lot of them want to say, okay, now I'm thinking I'll take a break and then I want to start something of my own. I said, okay, so what do you want to start? No,
Mm.
I'll take a break and think about it. So, I mean, it's almost like entrepreneurship is coming first and the idea is coming later,
Yeah.
which is strange, because I mean, if you're not passionate about something, then what do you want to really start? I mean, you should first have an idea, right? I mean, then so I think these kind of things, which is more linked to restlessness. I think there is some need to channelize some of that, and the other thing would be to actually, uh, in a way, uh, look at uh, what is your own thing and what you have in a way mm, been given. So see what happens. We were all like, I've been brought up in the 80s and 90s, so we are pre-liberalization kids, right? I mean, like my childhood was before the economy opened up in the 90s. So when we were growing up, there were no malls and there were no brands, and it was like Maruti 800 was the only car, and that also you could not afford, and all of that. Now these kids have grown up in a multi-brand, uh,
Mhm.
materialistic kind of liberalized India. So in a way, I feel a lot of people in their 20s or even their 30s have not seen scarcity. They
Mm.
have not seen how it is to not have
But
what you
then that's
want
not their
around you.
fault, Shailesh.
No, no,
That's
it
not
is
their
not.
fault. They are a
No, no,
privileged one, like
no,
I
no.
said.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
no. It is not their fault. But I think they, the interesting thing there is that because they're not seen that, uh, sometimes things may seem
Brilliant.
simpler than they are in real life. Because the real life is still bit tough, right? Whether it is a world of scarcity or it's a world of materialism or whatever.
Mm.
Because competition will only go up. It's not like everybody gets a job that they want. So because there is more people, the more people. Like yesterday, I put up a post on LinkedIn on Monday that we are hiring for people.
Mm.
I have got close to 300 CVs in just one day,
Wow.
purely based on one unpaid personal LinkedIn post. Because clearly, people are looking at things that they want to do and not necessarily getting them easily. So the point is that even if you have not seen a world of scarcity, life is not going to be like a bed of roses anyway. So one has to be able to, somewhere that illusion could come if you're not seeing scarcity that things are easy. But when you start working, you realize that they are not easy because things are difficult. Life teaches you its own lessons. So I think that's somewhere that perspective of like putting in effort to make things work for yourself rather than expecting that they will happen on their own. I feel it's a little bit of uh, something that people can be more aware of. I also feel that it's like at my age, it is very difficult to put myself in their shoes and think from their perspective, which I've given up on entirely.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know how I can think like a 25-year-old. I mean, if I could, then I would be 25 myself. So I think it's one of those things that you can give a comment or
Mm.
give a feedback or an advice, but you have to eventually say, no, you whatever suits you best. This is what how I would see it. But find your own
Mm.
thing. But just don't be impatient and don't be forever in a hurry to do new things all the time because life is too long. I mean, you're going to be working for another 30 years. Though some of them think they don't want to work beyond 35, but I'm then wondering they would do if they're not working. I mean, you are going to be working in some
Yeah.
capacity or the other if your health supports you. So when you have 30 more years of work life ahead of you, you can't be in a hurry to make something happen every day. So, yeah.
I think after this podcast, you'll get thousands of applications because now they'll know the value your company stands for. They will not even ask them anything. They can do what they want and they can go for a paid holiday as well whenever they want. So you opened
Yeah.
Pandora box today. So now you be ready for it.
No, we also do other things. Like we have a terrace here where we play cricket
Oh, see,
in the
more
nights.
stuff.
And all the other sports, including some of the indoor ones and table tennis and chess and carom and stuff. And then we do a lot of quizzing and we have
Oh,
a
that's
love for food. So there is a lot of food always there.
that.
So yeah, I think the idea is to a lot of people in this company are not originally from Bombay. They are staying here away from their parents,
Hmm.
the younger people especially, trying to build a career in industry they're passionate about, which is the entertainment industry. So you want to give them a home-like feeling, whether it is through food, whether it is through events, sports,
Yeah,
cultural
whatever. Yeah.
activities. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of that also going on.
Nice.
Yeah. So in fact, on certain days we wonder when we work at all because we are forever doing these kind of things.
I'm sure that there is a great balance that you're creating, and it seems like a fun place. I wish I would rewind my life and then could apply, but that's fine. But we are all learning through our new life here, through my second act. And I'm going to talk about second act now. Tell me, Shailesh, that, because of second act is a name which resonates whenever I think about it, it really resonates with me as like a purpose that I stand for now. And that's what I'm trying to build, through anything that I do in second act, whether it's through workshops or whether it's through, social entrepreneurship or getting people like you here, where we talk a little bit about where is your purpose aligning. Of course, the term purpose is also quite new, to be honest. It wasn't like 10 years ago that we thought, oh, what's my purpose, what am I doing with life, what am my professional purpose. But now, because we are also more aware, let's say, and we try to question ourselves to say, okay, I have one life, and like probably this is what I'm doing right now. Am I doing fully or not? Am I giving my 100%? So my question comes to you as, what's your second act?
Yeah. Uh, so, you know, uh, when I started working in this industry, because I was passionate about it and I kind of started enjoying and learning more about it as I started working. Uh, over the first few years, when I started this company, the purpose at that time seemed to be that, I'm passionate about this industry, and I'm also passionate about data and statistics, which is like something that is one of my core areas in terms of my education and my interest area. And this industry doesn't use that much of analytics and data, so I could be setting up that one company which makes them look at data to take more scientific decisions. And so for the longest time, it seemed to be the purpose with which this company would be running. And that was how it was set up. It was set up with that vision that it will be the company which will enable more sound decision making using uh, data. And data need not be numbers, it could be qualitative data, it could be emotional response that audiences have to content and so on, which is essentially qualitative research, quantitative research, and all of that, which is what a lot of our work is. Initially, of course, in that itself, we faced a lot of resistance saying creative products cannot be driven by data, which is still a debate that keeps going on, that is data going to hamper creativity or is data going to enhance creativity? And our approach to that has always been that we are not here to tell you what stories, how to tell a story, how to write your scripts or direct a film. We are not creative people per se. We are not in that profession. We do not have writers or directors in our teams. We are here to give you a perspective saying this is how audiences react to what you are
Right.
making. And if you recognize some of that feedback, you can, as creative people, enhance your product. So I would say for the first 7, 8 years of this company, out of the 14 years that this company has existed, my purpose seemed to be that I can bring in a change in the way this industry looks at data, the way this industry takes decisions, and a lot of that has happened, and which is one of the reasons why we're doing fine. Of late, though, in the last 4 or 5 years, I would say that seems to be more the settled purpose and more the business kind of a slightly more functional purpose, and that is going on. And now there's a fairly settled team which is, in a way driving that also. And my personal purpose has moved more to saying that can I create an environment and a company which can impact the lives of the people working here positively, which is financially, emotionally, socially, culturally, in every which way. So, in that sense, you sometimes realize that you could, make small difference to the life of many, many people, or you could make major differences to the life of small group of people.
Sure.
I think I've chosen to be more in the latter side. So there are a lot of times when we get feelers or from other bigger companies saying they're interested in potentially considering to say acquire us. As then my first reaction is no, because what would happen is that you will become one small department in a big company,
Yeah.
and the first thing that will go away is the culture, the connect, and that equation that we share and which we hold very, very precious. So to me, that the idea of building a family like team, and I know family is a very cliched word in the corporate world. A lot of companies say we are like a family, but
Mhm.
when the 5,000 people company says we are like a family, you are to actually question how can 5,000 people be a family?
Mm.
But 20, 25, 30 people can be a family. And I think that's something that we have started to more and more believe in. And that's something which I'm driven by. So, I mean, like, a lot of these things that we spoke about earlier in terms of activities and the freedom and all is coming eventually from the central idea that you want to build it like
Sure.
it is a second home for many people. It's not just a workplace. And that's something which I feel, I don't know whether it is possible to other companies, whether I can fully explain this without people experiencing this. Maybe someday, and I write a lot for my interest. I write blogs and columns. So maybe someday I want to write a book about this. So I have to find some way before I uh, quote unquote retire to find a way of communicating this part of the journey of building a genuine family culture in a 30 people company communicate in some way that this is possible. Because I think the cynicism generally is that, this is all lip service, and eventually you could use the word family, but people are there because they're getting paid, and people will eventually, not care much beyond that. So I think there is something that I'm in fact, recently we were catching up with some of my IIT friends, like after many years, and I was explaining some of these things to them, and they were like, who, like, this is all like in your head only,
Okay.
because in reality it doesn't happen, because whether people will have this, people are going to take life decisions. So I found it very difficult to communicate this to even people who are from the same education background and the same generation as me. So I realized that is something that uh, uh, genuinely I've started to believe in, and it's not something that is easy to explain. So, but yeah, that's where what I'm driven by a lot now, saying that you have to look at this as a group of people whose collective strength, mental health, financial security, very important, because we do a lot of things. Like if today somebody is wanting to buy a house, uh, almost certainly large part of that will be sponsored by the company. So it's going beyond just leave and all that, or it will be given as a loan which they can pay back without interest over many years or stuff like that. So I mean, so we're doing these kind of things with just the idea that eventually you want to build it in a certain way. And I think someday I should write about this and communicate to the world that this probably a lot of people see what work Ormax Media is doing as our big achievement, in terms of you brought in data, you made changes to the way industry functions. I think to me personally, this is my much bigger achievement in the last 3-4 years.
Beautiful. So, just like the from work from home has blurred boundaries between your professional and personal space, I think somewhere beautifully the personal and professional purpose is also aligned. There's a lot as people, what we think, we bring it to work now. So the values that we hold, uh, you know, I think there were two different faces when we came to work before, and now it's literally like merging together. Do you feel that change as well?
Yeah, I actually completely agree, because all these years before the pandemic also, you would read a lot about work-life balance, and as a phrase, that phrase never spoke to me, because I was like, what is work-life balance? If you enjoy your work, you will find a way to do it,
Yes.
and if you enjoy your life beyond your work, you will find a way to fulfill that side of it as well. So everybody eventually finds a way. So I think, I felt that work-life balance was sometimes a phrase used in when people could not manage their time,
Mm.
because I've always had an issue that these kind of phrases are there to account for time management problems. So, but now I feel, while the phrase is itself not problematic, its usage was getting a little too liberal, and it was being used in a way to say, oh, I want to work less because I want work-life balance. But
Mm.
that is if you want to work less, then work less. That's your choice, because that's your career path, or that's what you want to do, or whatever. It should not be like a grudge kind of a thought. And I think of late people have realized that in the last 2 years, maybe that is what the blurring of lines has done. That people have realized that what is important to them is what they want to focus on. And then some people have taken a break from their work. Some people have started focusing more on their work. In here itself, we have seen some people who have flourished through the pandemic years and become much stronger than they were, say, 3 years ago. And some people probably have not. So I think that I feel you're living one life. So you can say work life, personal life, but it's the same person. So how much can you artificially segregate? Your mind cannot stop thinking
Mm.
the moment it leaves office and start thinking again the moment you enter workspace. I feel like switch on, switch offs happen, but eventually it's the same person. Memory doesn't fade. So I feel that people have started finding this kind of a thing, and I also feel a lot of this corporate jargon which has been floating around some of these ideas over years, if not understood correctly, can lead people to think different things. So yeah, I mean, that's what my take on it is, that I feel uh, both the sides are important, and people who are good at their work invariably find the balance also.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what are you doing when you're not working then?
So the thing with me is that, as I said, my current purpose is actually strictly speaking, not a work purpose, right? Because it is to do with building a culture and a family kind of an atmosphere at office. Now, is that work? Technically not, because I'm not getting paid for it. Because the work that we are getting paid for is the more functional work of testing shows, testing films, working on projects, consulting with media companies. Now that is the work. But all these other things which I'm focusing probably 50-60% of my work time on, quote unquote, are actually not business generating things. They are more cultural and team building kind of activities. So when I'm playing cricket in office, for example, with the team, is it work time? Uh, I would, I mean, it is not technically, but then the line has blurred so much that I have stopped thinking about it. But I like to watch a lot of content. I still watch a lot of content. I've been watching it over years. It is also work again. So it is again a little bit of line blurred only. Because when I'm watching a movie, I'm not watching it because I want to watch it. I'm watching it because it's also the business I'm in. So I've again stopped worrying about that. So I watch a lot of content. I like to write. Uh, I've been writing a journal, my own write diary for many, many, many years. I've not skipped a day. So that's something I do. I write a couple of columns for the media industry for a couple of websites. I write a lot for our own website, ormexmedia.com. So yeah, I mean, but invariably, except for a few things, most of the things in my life would either come down to the media and entertainment industry, or it'll come down to the team that is here and the team that is being built here. So yeah, so it's a but of late from 2017 onwards, I started consciously saying I need to see more places in the world because early years either you couldn't afford it or you were busy working, you're not traveling that much. So then I started doing a couple of vacations every year. Of course, then COVID happened, and then for a couple of years that did happen. But now this year it's restarting. A couple of weeks from now, I'm going to Australia for the Cricket World Cup, so I'll be there for 2-3 weeks. I think next year onwards I'll be back on the two proper vacations a year kind of a cycle, and every time it has to be a new country or a new place. So yeah, so I mean I don't feel strangely any guilty anymore of being away from work for 2-3 weeks at a stretch, which earlier would be like a big thing. I don't totally switch off. It's not like I will not check my emails at all when I'm on a vacation. I don't bother about that. But yeah, I mean I think uh, seeing more cultures, seeing more countries is definitely on my list because I think I've been to around 12 or 13 countries, which is honestly not that much, given that I'm in my 40s right now. So I think I have a bit of catching up to do on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of catching up to do there, of course. I was just thinking about, the watching the content because my husband belongs to also an entertainment industry, and when he was sitting at home, he was never at home before, and when during pandemic, when he was sitting at home and watching content and literally watching content all the time, and we were like, "What the hell is going on?" He says, "But this is my homework." And I was like, really? I mean, yeah, you guys have it like really cool that, content is also work for us, but literally it's, yeah.
Yeah, so there are people here whose family, there are people in our team whose families actually say, "Are you actually getting paid to watch movies?"
Yeah.
So, which is actually not untrue because some of the people's work here is to watch movies and write reports on them.
Absolutely.
So
This is
yeah,
a new
so
kind of, did you read about it? There is this new job which is paid to get, when you sleep, you get paid for it. It's I think,
yeah, I
mattress
did,
or
and
something.
it was
That's true as
yeah,
well.
correct.
So the longer you sleep, the longer that you get paid for. So that's interesting, isn't it? So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think technically now that was the last thing left because you're getting paid to taste wine, you're getting paid to
Yeah,
eat and all that. So
not to
sleep
sleep.
was probably the only thing that was coming. Yeah, great.
Yeah, that's true. So
Well,
very
yeah,
interesting chat. Sorry.
no. I was saying it's just so nice that you can technically get paid for anything and everything.
Yeah, that's true, sir. So it's great really to know you as a person, to know a little bit deeper about you. But we also have few more questions, which are like rapid fire questions, and it's just to know you slightly more better because this podcast is about literally like knowing things which probably you've not spoken before, or people don't know that side of you, and I am hoping that that has come out in this podcast as well. So just few more questions before you go. So Tell me, OTT or live cinema?
In live cinema.
Wow,
Born and brought up in that. So
lovely. Texting or talking?
talking.
Clearly
Even more
talking.
than that,
Clearly
even
talking.
more than that, meeting and talking, but talking on the phone any day over texting.
Okay, great.
Texting I still find confusing because you don't get the emotion, and then
Yeah.
sometimes somebody's there is an element that unless you really learn how to use the right emojis, you are struggling to find and I still don't understand half of them. So if somebody sends an emoji, I actually said, "What does this mean? Can you explain?"
Yeah, you need the younger generation to tell you all that. And now there are
Yeah, yeah,
avatars and there are so many, new things which are coming
yeah, yeah,
even for
yeah.
us.
Right.
Okay, so time with self or time with people?
Time with self, because I think I'm with people all the time at work. So I like to be on my own when I go home. Like I can, when pandemic happened, people were at home. I was like, but there were many weekends where I will go home on a Friday night and step out of home on Monday morning. And that was for me perfectly normal. And I would never see it as something
Right.
unusual. So I actually didn't feel that whole lockdown phase to be that problematic. So I like writing, watching, and being with my own thoughts. So I like that time with myself because you don't get that much of it if
Hmm,
you're working actively.
right. So tea, coffee, wine, or whiskey?
Bit of all of them, but black coffee is a general uh,
Yeah,
keep me going kind of drink. So yeah,
great. A
so
hardcover
coffee
book.
is.
Okay. A hardcover book or a Kindle?
I have very recently switched to Kindle, like last 3-4 years, but that's only because as you grow older, your reading number increases, and you just find it sometimes slightly difficult to read certain font sizes. I still prefer hardcover books, I think, but for practical reasons, I'm getting more comfortable with the digital versions because you can zoom in a bit and you can read it at a font size you want.
Okay. And
Also paper. So a little bit aware of the fact that it saves paper and it's
super
back of the mind. That's a thing to think about.
great. So there's one last question, which I want to ask you is that what is that one thing that you would like to share about yourself, which people don't know?
Uh, I mean, those who know me very well may know, but uh, like, okay, I'm just thinking which one of the couple of
Which
things
of the
coming to my
secrets can I
mind.
tell? Please,
Yeah, no, it's not very secret, but
whatever you're
yeah,
comfortable sharing.
like one of the things which I feel is something which I don't see in too many other people is that I eat everything. Like I have no food mm, don'ts. So I can eat
Wow.
any animal, any insect, any whatever,
Really?
any part of
Wow.
the world. So I'm always like whenever I'm traveling to new countries or cultures, I'm actually looking forward to that weird thing that I can eat, which is
Oh,
very, very local and stuff. So people find so like when I travel with other people, I have to always like if you're going to a restaurant, that is always like, okay, can I have to order my own thing because I want to eat the weird thing, and most invariably the other person would not want to eat it. So yeah, and street food. So I like it. There's a food thing that there's
yeah.
nothing off limits, and want to taste every possible thing in the world.
So
So yeah, I know
wonderful.
it's a
Never heard
yeah,
somebody saying this, by the way. So that's wonderful. So thank you. Such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for spending time, almost 45 minutes that we've spent together. And I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. And
immensely. Thank you so much for
thank
hosting me.
you. Yeah, thank you so much. And we look forward to having another chat, maybe in another second act that you discover. Who knows? Like they say, never say
Yeah.
never.
No, wonderful. I think this is such a good idea that you're doing, and now I'm going to go back and watch listen to all the other podcasts as well.
Oh,
I'm just quite excited about it.
very good. Thank you. And see
Thank you.
you.
See you.